It's been a couple weeks since Fresh Start went live, so it's about that time that we discuss more ArcheAge. So today we're going to talk about just my experience with Fresh Start up until now and my character's progression. So 16 days later, we still have a queue. Now this is a good and bad thing. It could mean that ArcheAge has become popular once again, and there's so many players that they can't get us all in the servers at once, or, let us all log in at once. Or it just means that their login servers are pretty shit. Either way, aside from the horrible queues and the bugs with the gray screen and constant disconnections, I've had a shitload of fun with the time that I've actually been in the game. As mentioned in one of my previous gaming news videos, I found a workaround all the disconnects, and that is using a VPN. Kind of sad that I have to use a VPN to play a game in my own country, but once I started using the VPN, I never got disconnected whenever the mass DCs happened. Now I think that the DCs are over, at least on server Vengeance, and now the new problem that I have is just the game client closing randomly. No warning or anything, it just closes, and this has happened to me in the past back on the legacy servers. Now about my character, about my guild, about my experience in the game, I'm almost level 54. Now I definitely could have been 55 a few days ago had I no-lifed ArcheAge even more than I'm no-lifing it right now. Usually I sleep around 1 AM, 2 AM, but since playing ArcheAge, I go to sleep around 6 AM every morning now. Getting to 55 is not my main goal right now. My main goal is to get geared. If you're a legacy player and you remember when the 55 update first hit, the amount of time it took to hit 55 was about 9 times the amount of time it took to hit level 50. So getting from 50 to 51 felt like going from 1 to 50, and then getting to 52 felt like the same thing, and so on, maybe even longer. It was fucking horrendous. This time around, getting to 55 is so easy. I feel like you can get there in a day or two. Going from 50 to 53 plus happened in just a few days from crafting and doing daily dungeons, world bosses, and using the stones that I get. So it's been pretty easy. That's why leveling is the least of my concerns, because it will just happen, without even paying attention to it. It's just going to happen. I'm currently crafting weapons with my character, so since day one I focused on making weapons, and since then I've crafted about 10 or more illustrious weapons, and about 4 of them went magnificent. Now I have 1 lightning that's sitting in my inventory, and I'm trying to get my proficiency to 40k so that I can craft an Ethereum. There's a costume that you can buy with vocation badges that increases your weaponry by 5,000, meaning that I don't have to get the 40k, and then if you check the login rewards, there's a potion that also increases your proficiencies. So if they stack, that means I only have to get to around 30k. And speaking of vocation, the new family system is very interesting. I like the new changes that they made. I don't know if these changes came with 3.0 because I didn't play too much before 3.0. I only logged on to do arenas here and there. But I mean, like, family in ArcheAge is now family. It's not just like, oh, we're in a family. It's like they try to bring you together with these missions. And one of the main ways that you get vocation is doing missions with your family, whether it be cutting the fur off of an animal or butchering a pumpkin, getting honey from a beehive, whatever these weird quests are. I like the new system, even though sometimes it's a bit resident sleeper. And just from doing these quests here and there, I have a shit ton of vocation. And if you're not in a family, you definitely should join one, even if you don't care for the people in it. Join one just to do the quest. And maybe there's other people like you who have no interest in a family, but have interest in vocation badges, and you guys can just come together and form a family just for, questing. As mentioned in my last video, I have land in Yenister. I also have land in Solace with a bunch of my guildmates. We have almost this whole entire area to ourselves. I have a 16, I have an 8, and then I have a second 16 that I haven't placed down. Now I've thought about placing it in Diamond Shores, but I don't know if land is available anymore, and I'm not really pressed for it. It was pretty much to get the materials for regrading, but the fact that they took the housing zones out of Aurora unless you own a castle is kind of shitty, because you have to take packs across the sea if I'm not mistaken, and I really don't feel like doing that. My guild was also rank 2 at one point. Now I do think we have potential to get rank 1 or to get back in the top 3, but at the moment we've dropped down some ranks because I've kicked a bunch of members. Nothing personal, just people that were inactive. Speaking of the guild, we've been doing a ton of shit in the game, having loads of fun. Dungeons, PvP, killing our own faction. No, I'm just kidding. It's not like we do that on purpose, but on server Vengeance, as I kind of mentioned in the last video, I think I mentioned it in the last video, this faction, or the East faction, is like one big purple faction. There's like 20 different guilds that have purpled on my members, and so they're on our KOS list. So it seems like we might come off as a purple guild, but that's just because so many guilds have ended up on our shit list. I remember back in ArcheAge, purpling on your own faction was something people didn't really do unless they wanted to go pirate, or they were just dicks, and there was only a small group of those types of people. Like if you see your own faction doing trade runs, you don't really purple on them. It was just kind of a respect thing. But if you see the other faction, it's like, it's free game, you know, if you're red, you're dead. But on this server, anybody walks past another green guild with a trade pack, it's just as bad as going across the other faction with the trade pack. But I guess it just adds more fun to the game, so I'm not really complaining about it. I just find it interesting. And on my journey, I've came across some pretty hideous characters. Oh my god, bro, you're fucking ugly. When you guys see this video, I might have a full Celestial buff. If I do, that means I stayed up until 6 AM running greater dungeons. But as I'm recording this, I have 6 Celestial armor pieces and 1 unique. We were running dungeons last night, and I thought that I had enough shards for my full Celestial buff, so I allowed another member in my group to take all the shards. And then as we got out the dungeon, I realized that my cap was still unique, and I was like, fuck, I could have had Celestial right now because so many more shards dropped and I just passed on all of them. I've never seen anyone do it on Legacy, but dungeon gear is like the current meta if you don't have the gold to get Obsidian and regrade it all. And dungeon gear can be easily obtained by running greater dungeons, and then you can craft it up with no RNG, just dungeon drops to make it Celestial. There's also the Mist Song weapon that a lot of people are going for that is Delphinat equivalent, so it has a lot of DPS. However, there is RNG there when it comes to regrading it. So some people are confused and think they have to get the weapon type in a greater dungeon that they need. So let's say, for example, I wanted to get the Mist Song Katana. Some people think that you have to get the Katana drop from the greater dungeon, and that is not true. You can get any greater weapon and you can craft it up and then turn it into a Mist Song scroll or whatever ingredient is needed for the Mist Song weapons. Now, any weapon can become an ingredient to make the Mist Song weapon you're looking for, so I can turn a spear into a Nadachi if I wanted to. Keep that in mind. So dungeon gear right now, Mist Song weapons are really good, and there's really no RNG when it comes to the armor. When it comes to the weapon, yes, for the grade, but crafting the weapon is pretty easy. I've decided to focus armor over the weapons because personally, I plan on making an Ayanad weapon. Are you serious, dude? This is a fresh start server. You really think you're going to get Ayanad? Well, yeah, I do. I feel like RNG is finally going to bless me this time around in ArcheAge. If it doesn't, well, fuck it. I'll just buy something off the auction house. But for now, I've been focusing on dungeon gear and just crafting a shit ton of weapons to prepare for when I get that 40k proficiency, so we can go for Ethereum and then so on. And when people are wondering what I'm doing for money making, well, I have a farm and sometimes, you know, I just plant bullshit there. But honestly, I'm not really making like income. I'm not making that much money. Sometimes I do by investing into weapons on the marketplace and then crafting them up, salvaging, and kind of flipping my money that way. I've been doing a lot of arenas, and 3v3s have not been on my side. Most of the time I get paired up with like level 30s that don't have access to all their skills. I think if at one time I had someone who didn't even have 3 different skill sets, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing in this arena? And balanced arenas are cool, but at the same time, they're not really balanced. If you go up against a cleric with the melee rogue buff, that cleric will out heal you until you run out of mana. I don't know, I mean, they're still more balanced than, you know, the gear dependent arenas, so I do appreciate that. And for those wondering what class I'm playing, I am playing an Executioner, which is Battle Rage, Occultism, and Shadowplay. The reason I wrote Executioner was because when I started playing Shadowblade after seeing everyone and their mother playing Dark Runner, it started getting a bit popular, and then 3.0 came and they nerfed Witchcraft. And since so many people started playing Shadowblade and Witchcraft kind of got nerfed, I decided to make something different. And Executioner was also a good counter to Shadowblade because you have Stillness. I'm not going to say it's the best, but if you know how to play it, it can be really good. It can also be easily countered. And if you look at the passives in Occultism, they have some really good passives that boost your crit damage. And since if another car goes by, I'm going to kill myself. And as someone who's using a two-hander, Nadachis for the crit, playing a roguelike class, well, these crit buffs help out dramatically. But to get these passives, you have to put more points into Occultism, which means I'm going to be speccing my character like I've never done before, using crows and the explosion skill that goes off when you die, which can actually be really good for 3v3s if it works out the way I think it does. So I'm pretty excited to master Executioner in 3.0 and also see what the new Abyssal skills do because I know nothing about them. So maybe in my next update, I'll be even more geared and I'll have access to my Abyssal skills and I can show you guys what they do, how they work my build, and if I like them, maybe I'll even start putting out guides showing off different Abyssal skills or how to use them or combo them with your skills. So let me know what you guys have been up to. Have you been playing ArcheAge? No, fuck ArcheAge, why are you even covering this shit? Well, if you are playing ArcheAge, let me know how it's been for you. Do you have lots of land? Have you crafted your Myth Song weapon? Do you have a divine weapon already? Or are you rank 1 in the arenas? Let me know how it's been going for you, and I will catch you guys in the next one. See you soon, friends.